I think there's sometimes an assumption about therapy that you need to be on your knees mentally and emotionally before you'd actually attend a therapist. And yet, so many of the clients that I work with have their lives running in the trajectory that they always thought would give them happiness. And yet, they're just experiencing some level of dissatisfaction that they can't quite put their finger on. And I suppose it's recognizing that oftentimes the life that you create is not necessarily the life that will leave you feeling fulfilled, satisfied, and purposeful. And it's learning what it is that is going to give you a sense of meaning, that is going to give you that sense of fulfillment, and that is going to make you feel connected with who it is that you actually need to be, as opposed to the person that you believe you needed to be. So much of what we do is based on seeking approval, seeking acceptance, and assuming that following the path of others is going to give us that sense of happiness that we all seem to feel we're entitled to. And so much of what we do is based on conditioning. It's based on our assumptions for our gender roles. It's based on our assumptions for what it is that you need to do for your life to be deemed successful and acceptable. And it's oftentimes completely misaligned with who it is that we actually are. And it takes such courage and bravery and humility and vulnerability to admit that although your life is pretty good, that it's not where you need to be. And it's making a conscious choice to get in touch with your authenticity, to get in touch with your essence, and to take the risk in moving into a place that gives you a greater sense of meaning and fulfillment. And that being said, it's not easy. As I said, there are risks involved, but we need to recognize the script that we're running our day-to-day life to, and create a script that is aligned with the person who it is that we actually need to be to feel well and to feel a sense of equanimity, as opposed to always fighting to be somebody that you think will gain the approval of others, always fighting to be successful and beautiful and, conform with what it is that we think society expects of us, but which actually completely diminishes all of our individual and unique potential within. And it's moving from a place of rigidity into a very open-hearted, open-minded place, which is open to curiosity, open to seeing things from other people's point of views, open to exploring new avenues as opposed to sticking with the script. And that requires you to be present. And again, it's very hard to be present in today's world. I mean, we're continuously provided with distraction. We have our phones, and when you look at the amount of time that people invest in just looking at complete and utter vacuous nonsense and then claim to have no time, it's absolutely absurd. On average, we spend 2 hours a day looking at content that is no ways relevant to anything. We're just looking to fill a gap. And those 3 or 4 minutes that we just spend each time going through our phones could be spent exploring ourselves, who it is that we need to be, what it is that we want to do with our life, making inquiries about where it is that we need to go in order to build that aspect of ourselves, or even just looking within, checking in with ourselves internally, asking ourselves what we're feeling. Why is it that we feel a need to be distracted by our phones, our food, our alcohol, or whatever it is that we're chasing? And recognizing that it's not about improving yourself, it's about coming home to who it is that you actually are, to your essence within, and not always having to know who that person is, because again, we're transient. We are always developing, we are always growing, we are always evolving. However, in order for us to be going in the right direction, we need to get a sense of what it is that we actually need to be doing. And this is very much a step-by-step process. It's not something that we can conquer, and we seem to have this real issue with setting out on a journey that, as I said, has no guarantees and that we don't know what the final outcome is going to be. It makes us uneasy. We like certainty. We also do not particularly sit well with contradictions or ambivalence, and so much of what makes up who we are is a complete paradox. I mean, we have all of these aspects of ourselves, and then we have all of these other things that don't necessarily sit in conjunction with the parts of ourselves that we deem acceptable. And it's about finding the capacity to sit with uncertainty and ambivalence and not knowing the answer, and not taking yourself so goddamn seriously. I mean, we need to apply a sense of levity to our journey through life, because if we take it too seriously, we miss out on a lot of the joy, we miss out on a lot of the humor, and we miss out on kind of our own fallibility, because again, if everything is so serious, it leaves no room for mistakes or failures or setbacks, and they make who we are. It's about, kind of learning to reach out for the lessons as opposed to feeling shame and embarrassment for not being perfect. And again, it's recognizing that you cannot create a life worth living without time and conscious effort. And again, this assumption that things should just automatically fall into your lap is just absurd. We need to know who we are. We need to know the impact of our childhood and our past experiences on our expectations, our assumptions, and the way in which we think, the way in which we see the world, the biases that we have, the kind of I suppose narrow-mindedness that we don't even recognize within ourselves. And we need to recognize also that we need to create habits that are in alignment with who it is that we need to be. Again, as I said, this stuff needs commitment and diligence. It needs consistency, and we tend to assume that we can just do something on a short-term basis and see very long-term results, and unfortunately that is rarely the case. It's one decision at a time, one step at a time, one day at a time. If you would like to explore any dissatisfaction that you are experiencing in your own life, and if you would like to investigate who you are authentically and try to create a life that is more in alignment with where it is that you need to be, get in touch with me on the website. It's fundamentals.ie.